Night story. This story is a bit hard to tell because for as long as I can remember, I've always been skeptical about all kinds of superstitions. This is because my mother always instilled in my siblings and me that the only one who is with us is God, which is rooted in the fact that since we were born, we were linked to the Catholic Church. What I'm about to tell you happened, let's say, in a municipality of the Sucre Savannah. My mother is a nurse and has been a woman who, although she no longer practices her profession, has dedicated her life to her passion, which is providing her services to those in need. It all started when a lady, known in the town for reading fortunes and performing all sorts of rituals with candles, petitions to saints, spirits, favors, and all those things, contacted my mother to have her treat her son, who had had a fever for several days. My mother saw no problem in saying yes and agreed to visit her the next day. I've always been very attached to my mother. Since I was very little, I got used to accompanying her when she had to attend to someone, and I liked that. It was entertaining because it was like going for a ride and meeting people. That time it was a Tuesday afternoon around 4 p.m. I remember she asked me to go with her, and I eagerly got on the motorcycle with her. We arrived at a neighborhood on the outskirts of the town, which is known to be dangerous. We drove around for a while until we reached a house that had a zinc gate in the patio, which was the entrance. Just setting foot in the entrance, I had a strange sensation in my body that made me shudder. My heart suddenly raced and the air felt heavy. The place was terrifying. There were stamps of saints everywhere, hanging plants, strange symbols, tobacco ash scattered on the floor, and jars and pots filled with the saliva spat out by the people who were there, as if possessed, sitting on a wooden bench, leaning against the wall, swaying like drunks with their heads bowed, eyes almost white and smoking tobacco. Not to mention the smell. It was like gasoline, cigarettes, dampness, and dead animal, a completely unpleasant atmosphere. We stood there in the middle of that scene for 2 minutes. I couldn't hide the revulsion and the urge to vomit. The lady who had requested the appointment with my mom came out wearing a black t-shirt and only underwear underneath. Her hair was tied with a kind of dirty strip that went around her forehead and hung down on the right side. For some reason, her legs were wet with some kind of foul-smelling oil that permeated the entire room in a second. She stood in front of us also in a trance-like state, took my mom by the arm, and led her down a hallway to the room where her son was. "He can't come in," the lady said, pointing at me. My mom asked me to wait, that she wouldn't be long. My only options were to go outside and expose myself to the insecurity of the area or sit in the only unoccupied spot, which was next to a fat, shirtless white guy, all covered in hair, sweating the vapor from a chicken soup whose remnants falling from the spoon were accumulating in his armpits. After being there for a short time, I heard the sound of a car engine approaching on the street. Not even 20 seconds passed when a huge woman, about 40 years old, crossed through the door and asked for Yemayá, the woman who did the trabajos, ritual work. No one answered her, as the men and women sitting there seemed to be on another plane. The lady shouted again, "Good afternoon," and instantly Yemayá appeared. This time she wasn't wearing the same rags as before, but a kind of purple robe that shimmered in the light. She wore a crown of black feathers and a necklace with what seemed to be bones. She was so imposing that upon seeing her, the other woman stood up straight, made a strange gesture with her mouth as if trying to hide her surprise, and said she wanted to speak with a deceased relative. Upon hearing this, my body turned ice cold. And Yemayá responded that she had to prepare first and asked if she had brought the beers, the ash, and the tobacco. All of this happened right in front of me. Yemayá closed her eyes and began to make prayers that were more like vibrant sounds she made by pursing her mouth. Suddenly she would open it, spit, kiss the tobacco, and continue with her prayers. The voice was the most impressive thing. At times it was so deep it seemed like a man with a covered mouth trying to shout. Suddenly she grabbed the other woman by both wrists, pressed her forehead against hers, and there, looking directly into her eyes, she said, "Accept it, accept it." The other woman, with wide-open, reddened eyes, simply trembled, giving little jumps, and said yes repeatedly as if crying. "You have to sit down," Yemayá told her. "He is already here." The woman sat in a kind of special chair that was on an animal hide, from whose edges flies were swarming. Around this, there was a bunch of strange leaves and wet carnations, and above the chair, written on a yellow paper, was a prayer dedicated to El Negro Felipe. Here comes the most terrifying part. Yemayá took a long cloth from her robe and put it over her eyes, leaving only her mouth uncovered. As she wrapped the cloth around her head, she said something like she was now ready to receive him. The strangest thing was that at times she said, "My love, my adored one, my precious, I want you with me." Suddenly, her voice began to change, and her lips became larger and more pronounced, as if they were someone else's. "Did you bring me the beer?" said a guttural masculine voice in an accent I had never heard. The woman who was sitting was also in a trance. She just moved her head while moaning in a high-pitched squeal. There, I couldn't keep watching and fixed my gaze on a calendar I had in front of me. A few minutes later, my mom came out. I didn't even let her start the motorcycle. I was already on the back. I felt relief. Little did I know my nightmare was just beginning. It was several days later. My dad and my older sister had to travel to Bogota. My brother, being younger, stayed at my grandmother's house and I was left alone in the house. It was that night when everything happened. That night, I decided to stay up late watching movies. Since they hardly ever let me watch TV, I wanted to take advantage of those hours. When I checked the time, it was already past 2 a.m., so I thought about going to my room to get my pajamas to sleep in my mom's room because, in my opinion, her bed was more comfortable. My room was the first one in the house and my mom's was the last. My house is quite large. So, I walked to my room, opened the closet, took out the pajamas, changed, and when I was leaving and turned off the lights, I felt a presence stop right behind me in the darkness. It was a sensation that still paralyzes my body when I remember it. It was like when a dangerous animal approaches you, and it feels like ants are crawling in your head. The worst part was that heavy, marked footsteps could be heard, like those of a soldier, going back and forth in my room. I didn't think much about it and ran out. I went into my mom's room, locked the door, and turned on all the lights I could. I stayed there sitting and didn't fall asleep until the footsteps stopped, which was practically when morning came. When I woke up almost at noon, I found the house all dirty with muddy footprints, as if someone with big boots had walked all over it all night. There was no way I was going to stay and sleep in that house, even in broad daylight. I walked to my grandmother's house to stay with her. Several days passed, I didn't feel anything else. And one random afternoon, my mom asks me if I wanted to accompany her again to that lady's house. I told her no, that I didn't feel well, but it was a lie. I didn't want to set foot in that house again. Anyway, she left. She was gone until about 8 p.m. When she returned, she came through the door hurriedly, grabbed my arm, lifted my shirt, and looked at my back. "Does nothing hurt? Are you okay?" she asked me while looking me all over. I remember she had a little bag tucked in her pocket. I asked her what had happened and she just checked me and rubbed my shoulders. "Let's go to the church," she told me. "What for, Mom?" I asked. "So the priest can see you." "But what happened?" I don't know, let's go quickly," is what she told me. We arrived, and the priest attended to us from a small window in the gate of the parish house. He had just finished mass and was busy. My mom told him it was urgent, that her son was unwell, that I was unwell. I didn't understand what it was all about, but I found out immediately when the priest told her to calm down and tell him what had happened. He let us in and sat us on a small bench in the patio. There, my mom took the bag she had in her pocket and unfolded on the surface of the bench a manita, a bracelet with small seeds or beads, often for protection. One that she had given me, which I never took off, not even to shower, and I hadn't even realized I wasn't wearing it on my wrist. When my mom started telling how she found it, I ended up crying from fear. She says that she went to do the treatments for the boy, the son of that lady, that she treated him, left him well, and when she left, the woman told her she had to give her something and handed her the manita. My mom thought I had dropped it the time we both went, but the lady told her that her patron had taken it from me the night he came to see me at the house. The patron was the entity she worked with, the one who, I suppose, had taken a liking to me the day he saw me in her living room, and supposedly, Yemayá had convinced him not to do anything to me, that I was a healthy boy. However, she couldn't guarantee that it wouldn't happen because she was just a servant. She had to check my back to see if she could see some kind of little ball, which was how that spirit marked people. My reaction was to be terrified. However, the priest, skeptical of the situation, took me and checked me. I had nothing anywhere on my body. "Show me that bracelet," he said to my mom. But before she could hand it to him, the string, which was a resistant cord, broke into several pieces, and the little beads all fell to the floor. The priest immediately made the sign of the cross, grabbed me by the arm and took me into the church. He made me pray for almost 2 hours while scolding my mom. I haven't stopped going to church since that day, but I feel the situation could have been worse because about a week later, I remember I was about to go to bed. I was there straightening the sheets when suddenly I thought I saw someone passing by the bedroom door. I could only catch a glimpse of a silhouette out of the corner of my eye. I thought it was my mom and didn't pay attention. I turned off the lights, threw myself on the mattress, covered myself up to my neck and closed my eyes. Almost immediately, I felt a rough hand touching my forehead. I opened my eyes, scared. I didn't see anyone. I screamed and I see again a shadow pass by the door. Right then, everyone came to see what had happened to me. When they turned on the lights, I see that right in front, where I had my elementary school graduation photo, the frame was empty on the wall. That photo disappeared for about a month. We don't know who, but someone left it for the priest under the door with a note that said, "Take good care of him."